Films of Fury documenter Ric Meyers next on Retro Serial. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host DNC. I'm glad you could be joining me on today's program. On today's program we have superstar Ric Meyers. Now he wouldn't call himself a superstar. I'm calling him a superstar. Films of Fury documenter and martial arts extraordinaire, but I'm going to go ahead and let him talk about that in just a moment because you don't need an introduction to the introduction to the introduction. So we're just going to jump straight into it. But before we do that, just let me remind you to go ahead, if you're watching this on YouTube, to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification if you want to know when these things are available, and share it on your favorite social media so you can let everybody know about the great content you're getting here right here at Retro Serial. Also, by the way, I just opened a Retro Serial Instagram page at retro_serial. So if you're an Instagram person, check us out over there as well. And what else is going on? Yes, visit me on Patreon if you want to part with some of your hard-earned cash to grow this YouTube mogul empire. Then hit Patreon and you can join the $3 a month tip jar or the Cornflake Club, $5 a month to get all early access to videos and podcasts. Doesn't include the live stream. All right, and oh yeah, if you're listening to this on podcast, if you're a podcast listener, please go ahead and give this a review and share it on your favorite social media as well. Think that takes care of everything. Let's just get straight to the interview. Hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. We're going to jump right into our program today with our special guest, Ric Meyers, who has an awesome podcast as well as the author of a number of books and also a documentary as well, which we're going to talk about shortly. However, I just wanted to say that I actually met Ric over on That Fat Samurai Guys program, and he had some great insight into the two films we were talking about, the two Seagal films we were talking about. And with me always is my kind of co-host, Thrash Pondo Pons. How you doing, Thrash Pondo?
Never better. Good to see you all, or at least it's good to be seen.
Yes. And how are you doing, Ric? Doing
so
good.
Far, so good. We'll see at the end of the podcast.
Okay. All right. Are you going to see if you're going to come back? Well, I wanted him on the program because this guy is an absolute genius when it comes to talking about martial arts films. He knows what he's talking about. And what better way of talking about growing up Generation X and talking about the martial arts films that we all grew up watching, wishing we could imitate Bruce Lee, wishing we could imitate maybe David Carradine, wishing we could imitate Steven Seagal, wishing we could imitate all those people. And so here we have this special guest here, Ric Meyers, who actually knows his stuff when it comes to all the above what I just previously talked about. So, Ric, tell us a little bit about yourself, your involvement in the martial arts community, and your podcast, and your books, and all that stuff.
I'll do a quick little bio. I got involved. I wound up through a series of accidents when I was 19 years old, being the assistant editor of the Atlas comic book Seaboard periodical line in New York. Helping create, and I got recently to go back and take my very first comic book and turn it into a novel, and that's also available on Amazon. But in any case, after Atlas tanked in 1974, I started looking for other things to do. My editor started handing me books to write because he wrote a book on science fiction films, and he asked me to write a book, the sequel. He wrote a book on fantasy films. He asked me to write a sequel. And after doing those two books, The World of Fantasy Films, The Great Science Fiction Films, I started wanting to do my own books. So I would go to my publishers and say, I want to do a book on TV detectives. So I wrote a book on TV detectives and got out to Hollywood and worked on Columbo and Murder, She Wrote. And that was awesome. And because I wrote the science fiction and fantasy book, the guy who was creating the new Twilight Zone in the mid-'80s asked me to come out and be his liaison to the science fiction community. Because by then I had gone to work for Starlog magazine and I was assistant editor for them. And then I moved over as an assistant editor for Famous Monsters of Filmland. So I was involved in all that stuff. And I was working with Starlog, and they sent me to the set of Superman in England with Christopher Reeve and Richard Donner. And I was on the set for a month. And I was all so excited. And then I went to the premiere, and I was friends with everybody. And I was so shocked because when I was on the set of Superman, Lex Luthor's assistant was not Ned Beatty. It was not Otis. It was played by Peter Boyle. It was a reunion of the Young Frankenstein. And Peter Boyle was playing this big, hulking, monosyllabic, like Frankenstein, assistant. But because they went over schedule and over budget, Boyle had to leave to do another movie. He was already contracted, so they got Ned Beatty. And I was so upset by the Ned Beatty character because that was the one thing in the movie that wasn't realistic, that I went over to my friend Larry Hama's office at Marvel Comics, and he created the G.I. Joe world. He was just in the Snake Eyes movie. And Larry said, and I said, why can't they ever do superheroes straight? Larry literally that day took me to a movie theater in New York, the Bleecker Street Cinema, and I saw Beta Cart in the Land of Demons and Lightning Swords of Death, two movies from the Baby Cart series that Criterion has a box set now. And I was like, it was amazing.
Right.
And then he said, we're not done. We literally did a double feature. Then he brought me down to Chinatown that day, that evening, and there were 5 movie theaters in Chinatown that only showed Hong Kong cinema. And I saw Gooseboxer and the New York premiere of Drunken Monkey in a Tiger's Eye, Drunken Master. And then I was a Tex Avery cartoon. My eyes bulged out, my jaw dropped. This was a comic book come to life. It was done seriously. The very next day, I went to my publisher and said, I want to do a book on these movies. And they said, here's $750. Go ahead. And so for the
Bruce Lee to the Ninjas. Bruce
the
Lee
original
to the
title was Martial Arts Movies from Bruce Lee to the Ninja. This is the paperback. That's the trade paperback.
Now I remember you saying too that you were talking, it was on a podcast where you were saying that the Bruce Lee to the Ninjas was the guy said, we got to pluralize ninjas. And you said, ninja is plural. And
I said, plural of ninja is ninja. He said, we don't care. They make their books for Walmart. They don't make them for me. Yeah. So, that's why, they changed the covers. Originally, the one thing I was able to get done, this is the remake of the original. This one came out in 1985 after 7 years of working, going to Hong Kong, meeting Jackie Chan, meeting Raymond Chow, meeting Sammo Hung, meeting Wang Lung Wai, meeting Lo Lei, and all the rest of them. I got this out. This sold it came out in 1985. And in 2001, we did an update. And this sold all those years.
Wow.
This sold up until 2000. In 2001, I realized I was like a Chinese writer who loved baseball movies, but didn't know the rules of baseball. He just loved the movies. The movies were awesome. They ran around, they threw balls, they caught, they swung bats, but he didn't know the rules. I love these movies too as a combination of opera, acrobatics, athleticism, and that sort of thing. I didn't understand Kung Fu. I understand martial arts. Martial arts is, I hit you, I hurt me. That's martial arts. I understood in 2001, Inside Kung Fu sent me to Taiwan. And there I discovered actual Kung Fu teachers. Prior to this, I'd taken judo, I had taken karate, I had taken jujitsu, I had taken several classes where they said they were teaching Kung Fu, but I didn't recognize the Kung Fu they were teaching. As usual, they were teaching, I'm going to hurt you and I'm going to hurt myself while I'm hurting you. Also, I worked for Inside Kung Fu magazine. I worked for Action Films magazine. I loved action films because my first adult movie was James Bond. It wasn't Bruce Lee, it was James Bond. And I still love James Bond to this day. And I've written a lot about James Bond. So I still see that's where my podcast comes in. My podcast is not Kung Fu or martial arts. It's action film autopsy.
Right.
I do it all.
Yeah.
And and my column for Inside Kung Fu magazine, which I wrote every month for 30 years, And now they're back online, so I'm beginning to write it again. It's called Martial Arts in Movies. Take the initials of that, martial arts in movies. What does that spell?
Martial arts, M-A-I.
In movies.
Oh.
Mame.
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 Yeah.
Put
Yeah.
the
Martial arts
blame
is
on Mame.
about naming. It's not about self-improvement.
My
So
Sifu
that's why I
was
wrote
in
this.
my Sifu was in Inside Kung Fu on a few occasions, actually.
Everybody was.
Oh well, I never
Everybody
was. I wasn't. Just didn't know if you actually ever got to see him or meet him or whatever. His name was Ron Heimberger.
What was his name?
Ron Heimberger. There was
I may have.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people who went through that door. I know. I
Yeah, but I was the entertainment editor. I really did, I respected martial art teachers so much. I wasn't going to say that I was a peer. I was just going to say, awesome, keep up the good work. I'm going to go to the next movie.
Yeah. Well, I remember that those Inside Kung Fu magazines, they were great. Let's talk a little bit then about the advent, because I really like the title, from Bruce Lee or from martial arts to ninja, because I really did. And I talked about this with the Fat Samurai. I did see kind of the explosion of Kung Fu movies in the 70s, but then the eclipse of the ninja movie in the 80s. And karate movies, kind of thing like that. But I kind of want to get the flavor of that. Like, what was the advent of the Kung Fu movies, and what happened to Kung Fu movies in the 80s? There just didn't seem to be as many. The 70s were filled with them.
Oh no, there were plenty. It's just that they didn't get here because distributors. Okay, let's go through it. Kung Fu is different than martial arts. Martial arts is fighting. Kung Fu is self-improvement. And Bruce Lee made the bridge, but he died before he could educate the Western audience, the English-speaking audience, into true or elevated Kung Fu. His contemporary, his peer, who worked with him as a kid, La Kal-Yung, the greatest Kung Fu filmmaker of all time, worked with Bruce as a kid. And he even said Bruce was into the punch. Bruce was into meting out pain and taking pain.
Right.
Kung Fu guys were not. Kung Fu people were not interested in causing themselves pain. That's why my form of Kung Fu is called Don't Hurt Yourself. while martial arts was all about hurting. And the ninja, the ultimate hurters. I mean, they were you see, it's funny. The predecessor to the ninja were the Chinese Mo Sha or Mao Shan, who were known as the magician spies. And they had, I would say, 3 times the power of the ninja and none of the psychological crippling. I had also written, these were my best-selling novels of all time. I wrote 12 Ninja Master novels. I studied ninja in Japan, not here, although I know Stephen Hayes, I met Frank Dux, and I was sort of like going, you guys are funny. You're not ninja, but you're funny. But in any case, I studied it. My books, again, 250,000 sold. And I like to think, besides they're good, and I enjoy doing them, is that they tell the actual story of ninja. I also wound up working on the American releases of the Shinobi no Mono movies, which was a series of movies made in Japan about real, authentic, historical ninja. But what happened, you may or may not know, is that Eric von Lustbaden wrote a best-selling novel called The Ninja. And the 2 producers of Jaws bought it to make into a high-class major motion picture. And then in comes Golan Globus and makes rips off Mike Stone and shafts Mike Stone with the help of Sho Kosugi, who acted like a real ninja, and made Enter the Ninja. Geez, I wonder what that could be a copy of. But in any case, that grabbed the badass audience. As you know, I'm always having a discussion with that Fat Samurai about, he keeps on saying that I'm badass. I'm going, I'm not badass. I'm good ass. In fact, I'm great ass. In fact, I am great ass. And what works about great ass is that they go, oh, Rick, he's a really great ass, isn't he? And that's fine with me because I've suffered enough pain as a child. I don't want to suffer pain. I don't want to give pain.
Yeah.
So I enjoy these movies. I mean, this new one that just came out on Netflix, Kate. Believe me, we got the badass stuff nailed down in America. But I've discovered that most of the audience I know want to appear tough, want to act tough, want to look tough, but don't actually want to be tough.
I see.
They want to, I'm going to prove how badass I am, and I'm going to hurt myself, and I'm going to break my hand. And my attitude in all my books, and especially in the new Kung Fu film book, is like, not effective, not
smart, for you.
Not how tough you are, interested how smart you are.
Right.
So what happened was we got a certain audience, and I've done the research on the ninja movies. I've done the research on the martial art movies, and they seem to be wildly successful. I mean, when I worked for Ocean Shores, they took the Mystery of Chess Boxing, which is a great Kung Fu movie, and they changed the title to Ninja Checkmate. And when I said, why'd you do that? There are no ninja in this movie. They went, oh, Americans will buy anything with ninja on it.
I remember that. I remember ninja stuff coming out, and they would just say ninja, and it wasn't ninja. I mean, it just wasn't.
They were pandering. They were pandering and exploiting. The difference between Marvel and DC. Marvel loves its characters, loves its fans, respects its characters, and makes really good movies. DC goes, these guys will watch anything. Let's give them whatever we want. Whatever we want. No matter how good or bad, let's just give them whatever we want. And that's all the other studios are doing that. But not Marvel, thankfully. Disney's even doing that, but not Marvel.
Yeah.
So in any case, that's what happened. You guys swallowed that crap, so you got a plenty more. When they fed you crap and you took it, they went, we don't have them give them good food. We don't have to. We just have to give them crap with ninja on it.
Well, then what's, let me ask you this question then. What's your opinion of a good Kung Fu movie? What's like, if you say, I want to go see a good Kung Fu movie that's not crap, what's your favorite? Or a handful of favorites? In
the back of this book, I have a list of the 100 best, the top 100 Kung Fu movies from 1966 to 2010.
Okay.
If you get the book, the greatest year in Kung Fu film history was 1978. A classic, genius Kung Fu film came out every month and a half in 1978. And what's great about Kung Fu films is that they're eternal because they don't go with modern fashion. Kung Fu, the way we translate it in the documentary version of this and in this book, the word Kung Fu translated as human achievement.
Right.
Human achievement.
Yeah.
So all these movies show people, some of my favorite Kung Fu movies have no killing in them. For instance, a movie that I consulted on, Kung Fu Panda. That is a great Kung Fu movie. Kung Fu Panda 3 is a great Kung Fu movie. Kung Fu Panda 2 is not. There's no Kung Fu in it. So there you go. It's all martial arts. They should have called it martial arts marsupial. So now you can go on Amazon Prime. You can go on all sorts of places. Now, because the Kung Fu film is being wiped out by China, all these American and British companies are buying the rights to classic Kung Fu movies and they're remastering them. So if you go to the websites of 88 Films, of Arrow, there's a couple of ones in England too. I'm trying to remember their names. They're remastering classics. But in any case, let's start. You wanted, I'll give you a bunch. Of course, Bruce Lee, except for Game of Death, which was a horrible tragedy.
Yeah, Game of Death was not good. Did you see that one, Thrash Pondo? Did you see Game of Death?
Yes. Wasn't the one that was released after he died?
Yeah, but they also disemboweled it. They insulted him. I call the fans of Bruceploitation fan ghouls because they're basically dancing on Bruce's grave. They're not doing what Bruce wants. They're just their life of Brianing him. We'll do whatever.
That's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
I've got this shirt purposely. I have several Bruce Lee shirts but all of those are him yelling and screaming and fighting and nunchaking. I wanted a Bruce Lee shirt where he's thinking.
Ah, yes.
So I got this shirt because I still subscribe to what I think is his basic teaching, which is learn everything you can, but everyone and everything you can, then make it your own. Don't just copy me, make it your own. Nobody does that. They just screech like him, they copy him, they're copying his moves. So I'm like going, I'm gonna follow his teaching, not his movies. But in any case, movies. I always say start with 36 Chamber of Shaolin, which was hilarious. His producers came to La Calion when he showed them his finished movie and said, "You can't release a movie without a love story." And he went, "It is a love story. It's a love story of Kung Fu." Which is why I love Po in Kung Fu Panda going, "I love Kung Fu." So do I, because it's a human achievement. So 36 Chamber of Shaolin. Then if you want the yang to that yin, you can get Five Deadly Venoms. Deadly Venoms, which is a real comic book movie. I've always said the wuxia movies, which is different than wushu or kung fu movies. Those are movies where people have costumes, where they have specific weapons, where they have ornate names. They always introduce themselves when they come into a room, just like comic books.
Yeah.
So Five Deadly Venoms, also a great movie. Then we go on to 1978. 36 Chamber of Shaolin was 1978, followed by Shaolin Mantis, followed by Heroes of the East, which compares Japanese and Chinese martial arts, which is an awesome film. Nobody dies. All the Japanese in the movie, it's 8 Japanese versus 1 Chinese.
Oh, wow.
And all the Japanese performers were actual champion martial artists. And it's an awesome, awesome movie because I always get tired of people who are confusing Kung Fu and martial arts. Going, you confuse football with baseball? You confuse dim sum with sushi? They're different. They're not the same. And, the Chinese and the Japanese are not the same. Then we've got Avenging Eagles, Snake, and then Jackie Chan shows up in 1978.
Right.
What Bruce Lee did was mostly martial arts in his movies. He never progressed. He was always fighting and using his fist. Jackie, from his very first hit movie, always had an open hand and was always trying not to fight.
Yeah,
move it aside. So Snake and the Eagle's Shadow and Drunken Master, and then La Calion did Mad Monkey Kung Fu, Dirty Ho, and that's all in 1978. So again, and now modern stuff.
Oh, wait. I got to ask you a question. I have to ask you a question too. Well, I got 2 of them burning in my brain. What was your thought? So one of my favorite movies of the 80s in Kung Fu entertainment was The Last Dragon.
I disagree.
Well, no, this is my favorite. One of my favorite. I understand.
That's awesome. It's an awesome martial arts movie. I know the star very well. We're good friends. I can show you pictures.
Yeah.
But that's not a kung fu film. That's not even close to a kung fu film.
If you mean kung fu is self-improvement, it's a martial arts film. If you're defining it,
it's also a form of fighting. Just like Tai Chi. Tai Chi is devastatingly effective in its martial applications, but there's no mistaking it for martial arts. Okay. And Last Dragon is, again, it's Bruce worshiping, but it's not.
It's
Bruce
funny.
worshiping.
It's funny, Bruce worshiping. It's a comedy.
Yes.
It's meant to be kind of a comedy martial arts film.
Know all about it, and it's a very enjoyable film. But don't call it kung fu because it isn't. It's still a fun movie. It's not nearly as good, I feel, as it could have been. And the villain was very weak. I was waiting for him, the hero, to fight to the music when they're surrounded in the car. And the rhythm of the night starts playing. I wanted him to come out and be kind of like not sure how he's going to handle all these people, and then rhythm of the night starts playing, and he starts moving. He starts moving to the beat. And then he beats them all in rhythm, because that's what kung fu is. Kung fu is human achievement. It's using, if you see the great modern kung fu movie is Hero, with Donnie Yen, Jet Li, and the rest of those awesome people. Tony Leung, who's in Shang-Chi. Great kung fu movie, Shang-Chi. That's a great kung fu movie. And the poster that he has up in Shang-Chi's apartment, Kung Fu Hustle, on the DVD of which I interview Stephen Chow, great kung fu movie. That's kung fu, not martial arts.
Let me ask you about a couple other films. Let me get your opinion, because these are great martial arts films that I grew up watching. The Last Dragon was one of them. Of course, all Bruce Lee movies. I actually didn't get into Bruce Lee till later, quite honestly. But Karate Kid, what's your opinion?
Karate Kid's great. But again, you can see clearly it's a martial art movie. It's called Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And it's funny that the Jackie Chan remake was originally in the rest of the world called the Kung Fu Kid.
Yeah. Entertainment Magazine actually put out the Kung Fu Kid, and then they changed it to, and I was really upset. They should have just called it the Kung Fu Kid rather than the Karate Kid.
But you know why they're not going to do that?
They can't make the money.
Reason. Well, because one is a brand and one's a title. The brand is always going to make more money. So that's what they always do. That's the same thing. Again, with Ninja became a brand. So they used it on everything because they knew nothing a producer or a network likes more than a captive audience. If they have an audience who knows they'll buy or see anything with that. I mean, I had a friend who, there's a woman, he said, "You mean if I put Sherlock Holmes in the title of my next mystery novel, you'll buy it?" The reply was, "I'll have to." And of course, producers love that. So yes, they had to call it the Karate Kid. I don't blame them. But at the same time, the movie was reputable. The movie was still good. They're a good comparison if you can see them side by side. The original Karate Kid, which is pure Japanese martial arts and very well done, live on, taught very good lessons. Again, it was about, of course, the ending is nonsense, but it works. I mean, the crane style, it's like, what the F? The crane style?
Right,
but it still worked. It still worked. And it was theatrical and it was cinematic. I mean, in real life, I wouldn't have done that, but I would have done something that was similar to, in other words, confuse your opponent and then have the attack come out of nowhere. Don't use these. These are up here going, "Hey, look at me, look at me." So, and the attack comes from here.
Yeah. So
that was awesome. So Karate Kid is great.
Okay.
Both versions of the Karate Kid were very good. Even some of the sequels were okay. But
the
not as good, of course.
The Karate Kid 2 is I actually like that better than the first one, but because it's more the teacher story. But the Karate Kid 3 I thought was just a turd, quite honestly.
So did they. I mean, I have a wonderful picture with Ralph Macchio, and I said, "You're not going to do crane, right?" And he goes, "No, I'm not going to do crane." I said, "Let me teach you a Tai Chi position, a Tai Chi posture." And so he went into Tai Chi posture, and I did the crane, and they had to take a picture.
Oh,
so it was
cool.
The Karate Kid and the Kung Fu Kid, but switched.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. So and Cobra Kai is great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My granddaughter loves Cobra Kai. My granddaughter watches it all the time.
When you get into martial arts, it's all about, again, it seems to me, people are trying to be badass. They're trying to work off their anger by hurting themselves, by damaging themselves, damaging others, and thereby damaging themselves. In Kung Fu, Shang-Chi is Kung Fu. Doctor Strange is Kung Fu. Wonder Woman is Kung Fu. At the end, I mean, throughout Doctor Strange is going, there's got to be a better way than this, because everybody around him is doing mystical martial arts. So at the end, he finds out the Kung Fu way. And the Kung Fu way is, don't fight, make your enemy your friend. But if someone is so foolish as to try to hurt themselves by trying to hurt you, as a Kung Fu student, you'll help.
Did you ever read the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books. We're actually doing a book versus movie next month sometime on Way of the Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you saw the film too. I did not. Oh, it's just called Peaceful Warrior. It's not a bad adaptation. Of course, it's just, where the book kind of covers Dan Millman's kind of whole life. This kind of covers just his college experience. It was a really good. It was one of my favorite books, actually. That's ever
Fatal
been written.
flaw of virtually all action movies, most especially martial arts and kung fu films, is limited knowledge. I worked for the University of Bridgeport in their martial arts studies degree program, and I said, Kung Fu is so powerful that you only need to know 5% to teach it for the rest of your life. So we have a lot of teachers. I've met thousands. It used to be 1,000 teachers. I've met thousands of teachers now, and I like about a dozen because you're only as good as your teacher. And my attitude is it's great to have a good Taekwondo teacher versus a bad Tai Chi teacher. Tai Chi is incredibly powerful and very effective, but most teachers only know 5% or less. So they're not going to be teaching Tai Chi, they're going to be teaching Thai, and that's it. So
all right.
Again, all martial arts are the same: human body, human mind, the world around you. The rest is money and ego, and that's true of the film too. That's true of the film.
So I
Can I
got
ask one question, by the way?
Oh yeah, go ahead, please, Thrash.
Something I've been very interested in. Have you seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Of course.
There's been a lot of heated debate over the depiction of Bruce Lee.
Yep.
Some say that's exactly what it was like, and some say he wasn't like that at all. What's your take on this discussion?
Both of those comments are true. However, from a standpoint, you see, I'm an and guy. I'm not an or guy. It's not one or the other. It's both. It's almost always both. But be that as it may, I felt it was a clear character assassination. Quentin Tarantino, who knows better, took a tunnel vision. He concentrated on one Canadian interview when Bruce was at his worst and turned that into everything, and also used the excuse that it was Brad Pitt's character's fantasy. However, as a viewer and as a person who knows the entire family, who knew Brandon very well, who knows Sharon, who knows Lynn, and have met them all, and I've seen a lot of film, and I've talked to a lot of people in Hong Kong who knew Bruce. That was a very narrow, purposely negative character assassination. You know something's wrong when Charles Manson is given more respect in a movie than Bruce Lee is.
Well said. Very well said.
So yeah, it was, and also I loved Shannon's response to Quentin. If you just look it up, just say Shannon response to Quentin Tarantino. Her line is absolutely awesome. That was a clear character assassination, and I loved Quentin Tarantino calling Bruce arrogant.
Yeah,
I said, coming from you, that's high praise indeed. I mean, if a man knows arrogance, thy name is QT. And I know him very well because I also wrote a book I wrote for 1 week only the world of exploitation films. So I was invited to the premiere of Grindhouse, or whatever that movie was called. And I was like going, and also he knows I know, he's seen my books. And so when I saw Kill Bill, again, no real kung fu in it. No real kung fu. Did you see Gunpowder Milkshake?
Did I? No, I haven't seen it, I'm afraid.
Oh, it's fun, but it's so clearly John Wick meets Kill Bill. It's like hilarious. So in any case.
Okay, I got more questions for you. I just want to throw out some martial arts films, and this is kind of this is kind of where this is going. I'm going to throw out some martial arts films, and I really want your opinion on them.
I just have to say, I have to scoop. So,
okay.
Mr. Rick, I want to say it was wonderful to meet you, and we've got to do this again real soon. Thank you very much.
For sure.
Gentlemen, talk to you real soon. Take care.
Give my best to your pickup.
All right. So let me see if I can remove.
Seems great.
All right. Okay. Yeah, no, he's a great guy. Okay. So films. Here's what you brought Brandon Lee up, and I got to say that one of my favorite films ever was The Crow. But also when we're talking about martial arts was Rapid Fire. I thought Rapid Fire was an amazing film. what was your take on well, the thing about I liked about Rapid Fire, let me just tell you what I liked about it, and then you can tell me what's your opinion on it. Is he really used his brain in it, like instead of just hitting the guy, he hit the bed out from underneath them, and he used the refrigerator door. I just thought it was fun. And of course, I'm still young, but I was really young when that show came out, so I really enjoyed that kind of stuff. But what's your opinion? Tell me a little bit about the show.
As the entertainment editor of Inside Kung Fu magazine, I knew Brandon very well. We were becoming friends. His story is such a tragedy because he was finally accepting his father's legacy and coming into his own. And he was going, and just like Bruce, had Bruce lived, he would have gone on to again educate the audience into a greater form. And he started doing that in Rapid Fire. All his films were well-intentioned and very well made. I was called at 3:00 in the morning immediately after his death. I was told by a crew member on the Crow. They called me up and told me what happened. They wanted me to know. And they said, read the police report. And it still was a travesty. And I later met an actor friend of mine, knew the guy who accidentally shot him on the set. And that guy left the business.
Yeah.
And also the real tragedy is that actor who shot Brandon on the set was a method actor. So he had been practicing to shoot to kill, which was just, I always advise, I worked for a gun armorer for movies and TV for a summer. And the rule is never point a gun, even if you think it has a blank in it, if you don't have to. If the shot isn't from behind your back at the target, never point a weapon at anyone on set. But they were down in the Carolinas. They were in a non-union state. The actual gun wranglers had already left the production because they were over schedule. And the local cops take over the gun wrangling in that case at the Carroll Cove Studios. And all they cared about was leering, sucking up to the actors. So they weren't there. I believe that they were criminally liable for Brandon Lee's death. And of course, they wrote the report on Brandon Lee's death, and they had to arrange it. And I also tried to find out what was taken out of Brandon's body, but that was all sequestered. That was all made secret because they said it was wadding that was shot into him. Most of us don't believe it. We believe it was an actual portion of a bullet or a bullet because my gun wrangler friend said that the cops down there had a barrel of live rounds in their headquarters right next to the barrel of blanks. And it was like, just all, but in any case, Rapid Fire was great. Everything that Brandon did was showing exceptional promise. The true tragedy of The Crow is that the movie itself was improved by his death.
Yeah.
If the movie had come out the way it was, had he not died, it would have been fine. But it would not have been as good as what they had to do to finish it after his passing. And that's the final injustice.
Yeah, well, I when Brandon died, it was a little bit more, I took it hard because he was like my guy, you know what I mean? I mean, he was that was kind of my era of somebody I looked up to. And so it was really difficult when Brandon Lee died. And I really enjoyed his films. Okay.
By the way, if I die soon, you can take it to the bank that it's a conspiracy because we finished Shang-Chi and Brad Allen, the choreographer for Shang-Chi, died. And I went, and I can't find out what he died from. There's no cause of death.
Oh, okay.
So we have Bruce Lee, who could have pushed forward the Kung Fu. He dies. We have Brandon, who could have pushed forward Kung Fu. He dies. And now Shang-Chi and Brad, he died.
Wow.
So I said, if I suddenly die, it's a conspiracy.
Oh, okay. All right. I understand. I totally understand.
Hear that, everybody? Hear that? Okay.
So ninja movies, let's talk a little bit about those. Some of my favorites, some of my least favorite. I know that you were not a fan necessarily of the American ninja movies.
They're fine. I met Mike Dudikoff. I think I was on the set of one of them.
Okay.
And they're fine. But again, they're ripoffs. They're since the ninja had no place on earth and none in heaven, the actual ninja were self-hating. Somebody said, what did you think of The Last Samurai? I said, you might as well have called it The Last Nazi, because when you actually do research on samurai and ninja were created by samurai to do dishonorable things. Mm-hmm. But they could do dishonorable things because the ninja looked down on them and said, you have no place on earth and none in heaven. So the ninja were self-hating. They were given inferior equipment. And so they took pride in what they did, but they rarely used a weapon. It was ninjutsu, as you know, is the art of invisibility. Yep. So they would turn themselves into other people. There's a scene in one of my Ninja Master books, which I absolutely love, because I have ninja lovers who are like modern people who love ninja, because they figure ninja dress all in black and they do all this stuff in the ninja movies, the American ninja movies or the Golden Globus ninja movies. So I had a bunch of ninja attack my actual ninja, whose name was Darimo, which means nobody. Mm-hmm. And he turns out all the lights, and they all come in. There's 11 of them that come in their black masks with their swords, and they're looking around. Where is he? Where's our victim? Where's the guy we want to kill? And suddenly somebody realizes it's not 11 guys in black anymore. It's 12 guys in black, because our hero put on the outfit. He wanted to become invisible, so he and then he kills all of them.
Right.
He knows how to do it, and he doesn't use an inferior sword.
So were you a fan of Sho Kosugi, or were you not a fan?
Again, I met him. I like him. I'm unhappy with the way he kind of stabbed Mike Stone in the back. Mike Stone came up with the Enter the Dragon concept, and Sho Kosugi saw a way for him and his sons to be able to have a job. So he kind of took it over, but he knew his stuff.
Yes. And
he tried to do it as reputably as he can, given the inferior never crew, but the inferior producers and directors that he had. Probably my favorite ninja movie that's not Japanese is Chinese. It's Five Element Ninja. Or, Super, as it's also known, Super Ninja. That is authentic. The lore about ninja is all accurate. It's still larger than life superhero comic booky, but it's the Venoms versus ninja. And the ninjas actually behaved the way ninja did. But they were vicious. They were, a lot of poison, a lot of gas.
One thing we've neglected to talk about here, and I think, except for maybe with the Karate Kid, and that is we didn't really talk about specific karate movies. So
Sonny Chiba.
What would you think? Like, what are some of the karate movies that you would like, as far as 70s, 80s? And even 90s, like, when you think karate and somebody says, I'm going to watch a karate movie, who comes to mind most to you?
Sonny Chiba and Chuck Norris.
Sonny Chiba and Chuck Norris, right?
Sonny Chiba and Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris. I again met Chuck, didn't meet Sonny, but I met some of his students, and they were reputable. They did the best they could. They were pretty authentic to their art. They didn't denigrate their art. They had a lot of knowledge. Chuck was terrific. I mean, he had a tough life. So when he had a chance to take the high road, he had a choice between following up Code of Silence, directed by the great Andrew Davis, to do more movies of that quality. But he chose a long-term contract with Golden Globus, with Canon, for $1 million per movie. Yeah. Because he didn't have an enormous amount of faith in himself, Chuck. He didn't, I loved his line when he worked with David Carradine. He said, David Carradine is about a good martial artist as I am an actor.
Agreed.
And I think he was very honest about himself. So whenever Chuck was in a movie, I knew he was doing his best, and he was doing it authentically. He had knowledge, and he wasn't going to make the art look bad. So if I have a choice, not the later ones. I mean, all of Sonny Chiba I'll do. Sonny Chiba did a wonderful ninja television show. What was it called? I'll have to look it up. But yeah, look up Sonny Chiba's television show, and you can probably find it on YouTube. Those were great.
The only
Um,
the only television show I remember was Master Ninja. Do you remember that one?
no,
Oh,
I remember Master the Lee Van Cleef television show on NBC,
yeah,
which
yeah.
they ripped off, which they ripped off from my books.
Oh,
Yeah, but they didn't do a good job, and Lee Van Cleef was not a good choice. But I love Lee Van Cleef anyway. It's like getting David Carradine for Kung Fu. He doesn't know Kung Fu, but he kind of looks. And also, he's known. He's
yeah,
known. Lee
yeah,
Van Cleef is very well known because of the spaghetti westerns.
yeah. Right.
So again, that's, a studio or a network doesn't have respect for the material when they
Mm.
do that kind of thing. But again, they're depending on a stupid audience. They're
Ah,
depending on an audience who will swallow anything.
yeah, yeah.
So that's what they give them.
Well, we just want to see action films for the most part. Yeah, we want to see.
I,
We want to see
I,
those
I
action
am going to
films.
see all action films, but I want good ones.
Yeah.
I don't want bad ones. Bad ones kind of like, that's all right. I'm old, but I see them all anyway. I'm still a captive audience.
Right,
But on,
right.
on my podcast, you can hear what I think.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I understand. I mean, there have been some really bummer action films and martial arts films out there. And that leads me to this question. Go ahead.
Let me make it clear. Whatever you like, I'm happy.
Hmm.
I don't have to like it, but if you like it, I'm not going to denigrate it because you liked it.
Yeah.
Whenever anybody says to, like, Ron Van Cleef just responded to my reaction to Kate saying, I really liked it. And I said, I'm glad you did. I wish I did,
Yeah.
but I'm glad you did. Anything anyone likes, I am not going to denigrate.
Well,
Please don't let me give the impression that I don't think your taste is good or my taste is better or my movies are better. No, you
it's
like them. Excellent.
it's taste. I mean, a lot of this is just taste. There are some things that I think, though, that kind of, I'm going to be having a guy on my show next week where we're talking about like what ruins a show for you. And I talked about this on the Fat Samurai Guy show. And one of the things that ruins the show for me, and then we can actually even apply this to a martial arts movie, is the bad guy. The bad guy to me has got to be somewhat realistic or somewhat, he's got to be good. The bad guy's got to be good. And so, for example, in Karate Kid Part 3, the bad guy was just too ridiculous for me. He's like, I'm going to take some time off to be in revenge business. I was just like, this just doesn't ring true.
I felt that way about the villain in The Last Dragon.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That tiny little, record producer. I'm going, what kind of villain is that? What the hell is that guy?
For sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. That show. So I have to defend that show for just a second. For me personally, I was like 10 when it came out. So I would, I mean, I was real young when that show came out. And then the other thing is the whole show's kind of funny. You know what I mean? The whole it's not like a serious show. It's kind of a
No,
parody.
they're having fun.
They're
having fun.
Martial arts type of movie. But to take like a serious show, then kind of put a parody bad guy in it, kind of, I don't know, ruins it for me a little bit. But I get it. I mean, I understand what you're saying. You're saying, hey, look, this is what everybody likes. If you like it, then that's great. But I also don't have to like it. That's one of the things too. I also do not have to like it.
And more importantly, I'm going to tell you why I don't. I'm not going to tell you why you like it. I'm going to tell you why I like it or why I don't like it. That's why I never say we, I never say you, I never say they. I always say I. I'm not telling you that your taste is bad. I'm telling you what my taste is. And I'm hoping to my attitude is, as soon as Larry Hama introduced me to sushi and tofu and really, really good sushi and really, really good tofu, my palate was elevated. And the same thing with the Kung Fu and the martial arts. Once I've had spectacular steak, I don't want dead cow anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll look at the dead cow and go, yeah, that's a fine dead cow, but I'm not going to take a bite out of it.
I'm not I'm not. I have such a wide range of stuff that I like that's interesting. I wish I was a little bit more like that because I would be a little bit more discerning. One of my problems that I've always had my whole life is I just haven't been discerning. I just was like, oh, okay. Somebody else has to point things out for me to then go, oh, well, I guess I never even saw it.
You're serving your appetite. You don't have to serve my appetite. I can
Yeah,
take care of myself.
yeah,
My
yeah.
taste, my taste in everything. My taste in vacations, my taste in movies, my taste in books, my taste in food, my taste in clothes. All I want is great.
Hmm.
All I want is great at this
Right,
point. And
right.
also, I'm much older than you.
Yeah.
So at this point in my life, all I want is great. But then again, I still see everything. I don't, I'm not going to go see this movie because I hear it's bad. I'm still going to go see it. I'm just
Right.
not going to like it as much as I would have maybe younger.
Right, right. I get it.
Always looking for something that made me feel great.
Mhm.
Not, how'd you like that movie? It was okay.
So what makes a movie great for what makes particularly a martial arts movie? What makes a martial arts movie great for you?
Same as everything else. Every movie, if I feel something, if it makes one of the greatest action films, as far as I'm concerned, of all time, is Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
I went to that at least 4 times, 4 different theaters, 4 different times, 4 different audiences. We all laughed, we all cried, we all gasped, we all cheered at the same time, which has pissed me off so much about why the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences did not recognize that. Avengers Endgame was in a nutshell the power of going to a movie theater. And the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences ignored it, did not even mention it. And it was like, you guys are stupid. I lost so much respect for them for not acknowledging how important that was in educating the new audience as to the greatness of going to a movie theater. So now, screw you guys. So in any case, Avengers Endgame, what makes a great movie is it makes me feel, it makes me think, it makes me laugh if it wants to, it makes me cry if it wants to, it makes me cheer if it wants to. That's what action movies. I did a speech in 2017 for the Walt Disney Animation Studio. They invited me out, and I did a speech called The Art of Screen Action.
Okay.
And I explained that it's a good drama when the audience is crying. It's a good comedy when the audience is laughing. It's a good action movie when the audience is cheering. Action can make an audience cheer more than anything else. And that's why I'm so disappointed in modern, what I call physiology-free video game movies. Love John Wick, but he stopped being a human being to me. Loved Zack Snyder's Justice League, don't care about any of those characters.
Yeah.
Marvel makes me care about their characters. And also, the great Gareth Evans in the Raid 1 and 2. He spent an hour in the second raid connecting the fights to the fighters' emotions. And each fighter emotion had a different motivation and a different reason for fighting. And he spent an hour connecting that all up, but he also weaved it in and out. So it was like, if I feel something, even if it's amazement, speaking of the Raid 1 and 2, you ever see The Night Comes for Us on Netflix? It's like, yeah. You have Netflix?
Oh yeah.
Look up The Night Comes for Us.
Okay. All right.
It's the last word in Silat. There's no following up that movie because we're just like going unreal. It's not wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, if it makes me react, if it gets a reaction out of me, I do not want to sit there like this. And most action nowadays, I'm basically doing this.
So one question for you too that I have, somebody who's actually a martial artist and into martial arts films, the adaptation between the practice of martial arts to the martial arts films, you have to do some of that. Obviously you can't do exactly what you do, huh?
Yeah, you can't. Real martial artists in movies are kind of a waste. Whenever somebody says, I want to be a martial arts actor, I go, be an actor. Michelle Yeoh knew no kung fu. Jackie Chan was awesome because he was trained to be an acrobat and a Peking opera performer. If you're an actual Kung Fu student, if you're an actual martial arts student, fine, more power to you. But don't think that's going to help you in movies. You have to be prepared to be athletic if you're in an action movie. But to know actual martial arts is going to restrict you, because most people outside of me and a very small circle like playing that game. My Kung Fu is the best. My martial arts is the best. You only know one effing style. And that's rigid. You know, that's why I always say, learn everything you can from everyone you can. Because if you're going to go into movies, you need to know it all. You need to be able to be versatile with your body. And you can't just go, I mean, the first time I took a karate class, the person I'm sparring with, which I don't believe in now anymore, sparring, you're putting yourself at the mercy of someone else. I also wrote the Dirty Harry novels. And Dirty Harry at one point says, when you put your life in someone else's hands, you take your life in your own hands. And that's true when you become a sparring person, because you're only as good as the stupidity of your opponent. So in any case, yeah, you need to be able to know and do everything. And so if you have a trainer on screen, and you also have to be, you know, what's the word? You can't
flexible.
Be stiff. Flexible. Thank you. You have to be flexible. So yeah, you want to be an action actor, don't study one martial, excuse me, let me clarify that. Don't practice one martial art. Study them all. Which is what I did.
I had recently heard somewhere that people who choreograph action films like working with non-martial arts dancers the best, because a martial artist is going to say, well, I wouldn't really do it that way, or I would hold my fist like this, and the choreographer's like, look, we're doing a film here. And he said, and the guy was saying that the guy who was hearing it from, who heard it from, said the best people to work with are people who aren't martial artists, because they're not always trying to change it, and people who have some dancing experience, because they're looking at more like for the film, for the movement. They're not really thinking whether or not this would work in real life or not work in real life. They're just thinking, oh, you put your hand here, you put your hand here, you put your hand here.
And by the way, those people who think it would work in real life, they're also wrong. The moment they do this, yeah, it works in real life, but not well. It doesn't work well in real life. So in any case, yeah, absolutely true. I know a lot of action directors from all over the world, Hong Kong, Japan, Thailand, Malaysia, and America, and England.
Right.
And we talk whenever, because I did the Kung Fu Extravaganza at the San Diego Comic-Con for 23 years, and hopefully are going to do the 25th one next year. Please, people, get vaccinated. So we can go back to normal, please.
Please.
I mean, I'd love to be able to do it on my own, but I can't.
Yeah.
I need everybody else to do it. Stupid people. Anyway. So yeah, I talk to these guys all the time. When I lived out in Hollywood for 2 years working on, like I said, Columbo and Murder, She Wrote and The Twilight Zone. So, and also I was on the set of Superman and on the set of Moonraker, on the set of Alien and a bunch of other movies. So I have a whole network of crew members. And I love action directors, so I'm constantly talking to action directors, and that's absolutely true. If you want to go into movies, forget everything you learned, because who knows how limited your teacher was? Who knows how much of your style, and you only learned one or maybe two or maybe three.
Right.
And then the less you know, the worse off you are. And the more attitude you take, because I'm a real martial artist, the word, you're not going to be hired again.
Right.
One of the reasons,
unless you're Steven Seagal, and then you get hired.
He hired himself. He was very smart. He knew that the end of his time was coming, so he took over and did his direct-to-DVD stuff. Yeah. And also there's always people. Jean-Claude Van Damme is still working because he knows there are people, because he's a brand.
Yeah, he's a brand.
But, he's not going to be hired by a major company anymore because he's already burned all those bridges.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, we're coming up on the hour here. Ric, please tell everyone where they can see you online, get in contact with you, all that stuff. It's been a fantastic conversation. You are a wealth of martial arts knowledge and movie knowledge. So please let everybody else know where they can drink from that well, my friend.
As I always say, it's not getting me started, it's stopping me. So, and also you manage, and I commend you for your Kung Fu and martial art ability, because you managed to make this a dialogue rather than my usual monologue. So in any case, you can find me on Facebook under, I think, Ric Meyers or Richard Meyers. No K on Rick, leave the K off for Kung Fu and Karma. You can find me, I have a story company page on Facebook as well.
Okay.
You can find, I have Kung Fu Ric Meyers at gmail.com if you want to email me. But if you find me on, and there's no mistaking me, believe me, there's no mistaking me when you find me.
You're right.
On Facebook, you can messenger me.
Uh-huh.
And you can go on Amazon, and the books are still available. The documentary is still available as a DVD. You can get an IMDb. You can find all my stuff, all this stuff. These are only some of the books I've written over the years. Science fiction, horror. There's a Dirty Harry in there. There's the Ninja Master. There's my horror trilogy. Those are all you can find used, but you can also probably find the titles on Goodreads.
And what's the name of the podcast?
Action Film Autopsy.
And is that on all major podcast forums, or do you have to go to your?
Yes, you can subscribe to it on iTunes or whatever, Apple Podcasts now.
Awesome.
And I hear it's on other ones too, but you can go to actionfilmautopsy.com, Action Film Autopsy, all one word, find it, and then you can get onto my Facebook. You can get onto all my other things from actionfilmautopsy.com.
I will link that in the description below, so then they can get in contact with everything else that you have.
And you can also go to, although it's not my website, you can also go to filmsoffury.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Retro Serial. And if you like this, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share it on your favorite social media so you can let everyone know about the great content you're receiving right here at Retro Serial. We are all about growing up Generation X. And so get in contact with me. I'd love to have you on the show. I'm always looking for great ideas for guests and great ideas for programs. So please do. If you're listening to this on podcast only, please go ahead and leave me a review and a rating. It means the world to me. But if you like what we're doing here, check out the YouTube page, because there are certain things on YouTube that don't quite transfer over to audio only. And so there's just extra stuff on YouTube. You can support us on Patreon, where we have our Cornflake Club. And coming soon, we are going to be having our Honeycomb Hideout. And I think that's about it. All right, Rick, thank you very much, and stay retro, everyone.